Now I'm going to talk about how to split the goods receipt into multiple stock types and multiple warehouses or storage locations. What do I mean by that? Say there is the Chicago plant and it has two storage locations, coffee, raw materials. The coffee storage location, say, is completely full. It doesn't have space. The truck has come in with 100 pounds or 1000 pounds of coffee. And where do you put the coffee? Into the coffee storage location. But it doesn't have space. Maybe it only has space for, say, 100 pounds or 200 pounds. And what happens to the 900 pounds? You can't ask the truck to go back, right, and come again tomorrow. That's not fair. He might do that, but can we put the goods in the raw material storage location temporarily? Yes. The same delivery can be split in quantity across multiple storage locations. How do you do that? Again, in the interest of time, I have created a purchase order for 1000 pounds of coffee beans. Save it. And now let's go do a MyGo. MyGo. Don't do a cancellation. Instead, do a goods receipt. Goods receipt against PO. Now, what do you want to do? We only have space for 100 pounds in the coffee storage location, and 900 pounds need to be put in the raw material storage location. Later, we can pull it back from raw material to coffee storage location using a transfer posting if they are nearby, or stock transfer if they are far apart. So the way to do this split is via this button, distribute quantity. Click on that button, and then if you see this message, just say OK. And how do you want to distribute? We want to distribute 100 pounds of coffee into the storage location coffee. That's how much space we have. And 900 pounds into the raw material storage location. Hit enter and click on adopt. That's it. Click save. And you see, SAP has split it into two line items, one for 100 and one for 900. And the 100 quantity goes into the coffee storage location, and the 900 quantity goes into the raw material storage location. You can save it and always go and check back in MMBE to verify that the stock has really been posted accordingly. Now, this is one way to split the stock. Splitting the stock by storage location. Some quantity here, some quantity there. You can also split by stock type. Again, in the interest of time, I have already created an order for a quantity of 1000. Now go to MyGo, enter the purchase order number in there. This purchase order is again for 1000 pounds of coffee. Now we want to split based on stock type. So 100 quantity goes into quality stock in storage location coffee, and 900 quantity goes into unrestricted use for storage location coffee. Why do you want to do that? Say for example, 1000 pounds of coffee is 10 bags of coffee. You've seen that there is a little bit of mold or some kind of deformation in one of the bags. That's it, that is 100 pounds of coffee. The person receiving it into the warehouse is not sure if that is really good quality. He can send it back, that's an option, but if he's not really sure, he might as well put it in quality. Or somebody who is a coffee expert who comes in tomorrow morning to do a quality check can go do a quality check, and if it's okay, puts it back into unrestricted use. If not, he can return it or put it in blocked stock. And this is how you can distribute one line item into multiple stock types. So 100 goes into quality, 900 goes into unrestricted. Check and click OK and click item OK and save. And like I said, I can go to MMBE and check for the stock. You can do this as an exercise. Some materials are more prone to quality issues. For example, between coffee, flour, and sugar, probably flour and sugar are more commodities. They have a consistent quality range. But coffee has wide variations. So when we are procuring these three materials, we want to make sure that coffee always goes through a quality check. Not so much for flour and sugar. Well, you can do it, but coffee has to go through a quality check. How do you work on that? Well, it's really simple. In the material master, there is a flag called post to inspection stock. This is in the purchasing view. Purchasing view. Now, if you check this on, then every time during a goods receipt, when the stock comes in from the vendor, so SAP suggests that you put the stock in quality stock as opposed to unrestricted stock. You can change this preference during the goods receipt manually, but by default, every GR for this material asks you to put the stock in quality. Let's do a simple purchase order. We'll see this in action. Document overview of. We'll do it with the same vendor, 4001. And for the same material, coffee beans, right? And click save. Copy the PO. And when I do the MyGo, what is the stock type that the system is suggesting we put the stock into? Unrestricted use. This is the default. Now when you put it in there, the unrestricted stock goes up, and you know what happens. Now let's do that change in the material master. MM02 coffee beans, and go to the purchasing view, click OK, and the plant is Chicago 1. And this is the flag that I was talking about. Post to inspection stock. If you check that flag on and save it, the next time you create a purchase order and do a goods receipt, the system suggests that you put the stock in quality. Let's see that. Again, do another purchase order. Copy the PO. Now do a MyGo. Do you see the difference here? The stock type has now changed to quality. Now you can go manually change it. No big deal. But by default, the system suggests that you post this type of material, coffee beans in this case, into quality stock so that somebody can inspect the stock and then after that put it in unrestricted stock. Now for some kind of materials, say flour or sugar, it could be possible that in some seasons the quality goes bad, and on some seasons the quality is okay. For example, when the rains start, the quality of coffee degrades. So you want to really only check for quality issues in coffee in the rainy season. Right? You don't want to do it every time. So you can check this flag on and off depending on the season. Or there could be some scenarios where you don't want to always do quality, but only occasionally do quality under certain conditions. For example, say you have placed an order for sugar with a totally new vendor. Well, you have analyzed the quality and everything, but you want to make sure that particularly all sugar from this vendor needs to go quality check, say maybe for a period of 1 week or 1 month, until you're absolutely sure that sugar from this vendor is okay. Can you do that? Well, when you create your purchase order, let's take the same material If you go to the delivery tab, you see the stock type is defaulted to quality. You know the reason why. If you take another material, say New York Times, you want to inspect for quality for a period of 1 week or 1 month because you're ordering this from a new vendor. I'm just taking New York Times because I've got that material readily available, but you can take any material, coffee, sugar, anything. Now, if you go there, because we have not marked New York Times as relevant for quality in the material master, the stock type by default goes to unrestricted use, just like how we have been doing. Now, here, the person placing the purchase order can change it manually to quality. Now, if you save this order and then go do a goods receipt, obviously the suggestion to the warehouse manager is to put the stock into quality as opposed to unrestricted use. You see that? Essentially, it's a way for the person doing the purchase. So essentially, this is a temporary way for the purchasing manager or somebody in purchasing to suggest to the person receiving the goods that rather receive it in quality, check for quality, than just post it into unrestricted stock. When you do a goods movement, there are some side effects, right? We know some of the side effects. We're just going to formally learn all the side effects. Whenever you do a goods movement, there are 5 or 6 different things that happen. They might not happen all the time, but most of the time. In some situations, some of them might not happen. The first and primary side effect is inventory update. The inventory either goes up or goes down, depending on the movement type. Like I said, this need not happen all the time. For example, in case of goods receipts or goods issues, this inventory update happens, right? You're removing the goods or putting the goods in. Inventory has to change. So this is where the quantity changes. But there are some examples where this does not happen. Example. So let's first focus on examples where it happens. So example, GR or GI. So in case of goods receipts or goods issues, an inventory update happens. Now there are some other internal processes where inventory update might happen. For example, convert a material from one material to another. In that case also an inventory update happens. Now when you do a transfer posting from quality to unrestricted stock, in that case the total inventory in that plant or storage location does not change. You are essentially moving stock in between one storage type to another, right? So this is no change. Let me put it with a cross mark. Another side effect of goods movement is value update. where the value of that material changes. So there is $100,000 worth of coffee, not pounds of coffee, worth of coffee that could be 10,000 pounds in our plant. Now you add 10 more pounds. The worth of coffee increases by 10 multiplied by whatever is the standard cost or the moving average cost. So a value update, this is affected by the accounting document referencing that goods movement. So what happens? The inventory either goes up or goes down depending on if it's a goods receipt or a goods issue. And an offset account either goes up or goes down depending on goods receipt or issue. The offset account could be a consumption account like a cost center or a GRIR account. So that is an example of value update. A third side effect is consumption. For example, if you issue goods against a sales order, the customer has placed an order for 10 pounds of coffee and you've issued the goods against that sales order. So 10 pounds of coffee is deemed as consumed. Example, goods issue against sales order, cost center, etc., etc., production order. All of these are examples of consumption. And what happens? Consumption either goes up or goes down depending on what the kind of activity is. For example, you issue goods against a sales order. That's an example of consumption increase. But if the customer returns it, that's an example of a decrease. Right? Now, no change example is scrapping. In case of scrapping, there is not really any change in consumption. Or another example is transfer posting from QA to unrestricted stock. In this case also, there is no change in consumption because nothing is really being consumed. Or receipts. All receipts typically, or rather not all receipts, but some of the receipts, for example, receipts against a purchase order, nothing is going to happen. Receipts against PO. In this case, consumption does not change. But when you do a return against a sales order, consumption changes. So if the original transaction has changed consumption, almost all the time a reversal will also change consumption in the reverse direction. So that's another side effect of goods movement. Another side effect is a reservation update. Example, if somebody reserves 100 pounds of goods. Now it could be a sales order. Let me put these examples. Example is a sales order or a production order. A production order for 10 pounds of cake requires 8 pounds of flour, 1 pound of sugar, 1 pound of cream, so on and so forth. All of them are reserved, and that SAP takes care of that automatically. Similarly, when you create a sales order for 10 pounds of coffee, that means a customer is asking for 10 pounds of coffee. a reservation will be made for 10 pounds of coffee, and that's automatic. You can see that in the reservations section. So a reservation again either goes up or goes down. And as usual, not everything will result in a reservation. Examples are scrapping. Goods receipt will not result in reservation. Only upstream transactions like sales orders, production orders, anything that need goods will reserve stock. You can also do a manual reservation, that's a different story. So reservations are updated as soon as you do the goods movement. That means a sales order has reserved the stock and you have issued stock against that sales order. Now that reservation is no longer valid. So that reservation will be updated as done completely. So that's what I mean by a reservation update. If it is partially sent out, the reservation will be reduced by so much. Same with the production order. So the fifth side effect is order update. Example is production order. A production order for 10 pounds of cake after it's received into the warehouse will be deemed as received. So the corresponding order is updated. Right? These are some of the side effects of goods movement, and I have not highlighted all of them, but some of the side effects. This probably covers around 70% of all the side effects and should give you a fairly good picture on what are the major side effects of goods movement. There are other examples which we can see when we touch configuration of goods movement.